Assalamu alaikum viewers, a very warm welcome to all of you. You're watching Hidayat TV. I'm Haider with another episode of Generation Gap. Inshallah, today we will be covering upcoming Pakistan elections 2013. Viewers, Pakistan is a Muslim majority state that occupies an area which was home to some of the earliest human settlements and where two of the world's major religions, Hinduism and Buddhism, were practiced. The only Muslim nuclear power, the only Muslim country that was born out in the name of religion before 1948, of the partition of the Indian subcontinent, but since then it has faced both domestic political upheavals and regional confrontations. More than 30 years of military dictatorship, a very weak civilian setup, and for the very first time in history of 63 years is going to organize elections. Pakistan votes on 11th May 2013 for its future premier, who will not only see the challenges of economic downturn but also face the threat of Talibanization, a more radicalized country. It is home to 180 million people, approximately 7 million of those living abroad, with the vast majority of them residing in the Middle East, Europe and North America. Viewers, in a recent article written by Ayaz Amir, he writes, "Consider the sheer variety of this land's geography, not just mountains, but the highest mountains, the deepest valleys, the endless plain stretching from the foothills of the Himalayas down to the sea, the Cholistan, the Thar, the Makran coast, which took such a heavy toll of Alexander the Great's troop as they struggled to make their way back to Mesopotamia, the hills of Balochistan, the rivers of Punjab. Civilization began here. In the Indus Valley, ages before the glory of Greece or the grandeur of Rome, the cradle of civilization, the crucible of history. What are the armies that haven't marched through this land? Aryans, Greek, Mongols, Tatars. On the face of Pakistan, on the ethnic mix of its population, this history is etched. Pakistan is not one race, but they are an amalgam of different races and speak different languages. Viewers, sadly, now authors write about it, a failed state, a country on the brink of collapse, an imploding state. But does redemption starts soon? Does it lies in the hands of the people of Pakistan? Can the people of Pakistan turn their fortunes around in another 40 days? This is our today's topic. We will be covering overseas perspective, as well as we'll be going to Pakistan and talk to people in there. We'll speak to different generations and we'll see how they see this upcoming election as Pakistan votes. We are joined by Dr. Muhammad Taqi from America, columnist of Daily Times. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Taqi.
Assalamu alaikum, Sayyid Sahab. How are you?
Okay, alhamdulillah. Also, Omar Zia, he's training barrister from Lincoln's in London, and on the phone we have Iman Hazar Mazari. She is also undergraduating from University of Edinburgh, is also a political activist. Assalamu alaikum, Iman, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you very much all for joining us. So let me start with this very first question. Being in different countries and different parts of the world, do you find these events unfolding in Pakistan resonating, and how do you connect? Let me start with Dr. Taqi, please.
Yes, they do. It's an important election in the Pakistani history, and whatever transpires in that region actually would have an impact not only in that region, but perhaps on a lot of world events. So people are watching closely whether we get to vote or not. Despite that, we would be watching the election very closely, and most capitals of the world would have their eyes on Pakistan as the election unfolds.
Okay, Omar, your point of view?
I agree with Dr. Taqi, not just on the world level. I think it affects and influences our lives as individuals as well, because like he said, it's an important election, and it's in many ways going to determine the direction of the country from this point onwards.
Okay, Iman, what's your view on that?
Well, unfortunately, I can't hear the other two people, but I think that it's a very important time, especially now in Pakistan, and it affects everybody, all overseas Pakistanis, regardless of where they are, because now's the time for everybody to be part of a change and to be part of the electoral process.
And I mean, as overseas Pakistanis, our loyalties have been questioned recently in the Dr. Tahir Qadri judgment in Supreme Court of Pakistan as well as we get these loyalty lessons from the Western countries when they try to integrate within their culture. So what do you think, where we belong, where overseas Pakistanis they belong from?
Well, I think that there's an important fact that we must bear in mind, and that's the fact given in the Pakistani constitution itself, that dual nationals do not have a right to contest elections. But I don't think that there's a question of loyalty, because I don't think that the general populace or anyone for that matter truly questions the loyalty of overseas Pakistanis. I think that they recognize that overseas Pakistanis make a lot of positive contributions to Pakistan, particularly in the form of remittances and encouraging like political activism. But I do think that it's important to accept that dual nationals should not be allowed to contest elections simply because of the fact that when any individual swears allegiance to any country other than his or her home country, there's a certain conflict of interest that arises, and I think that's unavoidable when you're a dual national, and because of that, I don't think that they have a right to contest elections.
Okay. Dr. Taki, what's your view on it? I mean, dual nationality should bar people from contesting elections?
Well, I have a vested interest in it, so I guess my take is that no, they should not be barred. But I have taken serious offense to what the Chief Justice of Pakistan was saying in that hearing. He has really gone out of his way to denigrate, ridicule overseas Pakistanis, dual nationals, despite the fact that he himself benefited from our support in his restoration movement multiple times. I was one of the first overseas Pakistanis to actually meet him at his house when he was under house arrest. Within a month of his when he was deposed. So we have our interest in Pakistan, we have our interest in the United States, UK, wherever we are citizens of the world. We are not just tied to one land as such, and our loyalties can be multiple, but they are not mutually exclusive, and they are not something, it's not like you can pressure diaspora into actually doing something, either bidding for the homeland or bidding for the host nation. We readjust to the changing world realities, and I think Pakistanis as such should. And what I would say is that over its 65 years in existence, no dual national has actually hurt Pakistan. Only the single national generals and judges have actually destroyed Pakistan, to their heart's content. Thankfully, no dual national has partaken in that loot.
Be part of the process as well. The loyalties should not be questioned. And Omar,
absolutely not, and least of all by someone who's whose own credentials are impugned multiple times. Judges are probably one of the worst lot that Pakistan has ever experienced. The Pakistani judicial history is one of the most checkered ones. I'm not about to let Chief Justice of Pakistan question my loyalty to anything.
Okay, Omar, what's your view on it?
What I think, sir, is this year, for example, the Pakistan Finance Ministry claimed that they're going to receive remittances which will exceed $14 billion. What that explains is the strong community ties that people of Pakistan who've left Pakistan have with their country. The whole question of loyalty is very loosely structured. I don't even know where it's rooted in. We've heard the arguments like conflict of interest in everything, but I don't see how they develop, and I don't really see a conflict of interest either from barring people to get involved in the political process or even contest elections. Like Dr. Taki said, that it's a presumption really once you're a dual national, you're disloyal. It doesn't really follow. I have not seen examples. I've not seen that happening in our history. And keeping in view our inglorious history, it's not really the dual nationals who've really affected Pakistan. It's people who've had strong institutional interests, such as the establishment, such as the judiciary, such as the politicians who were not dual nationals. They damaged Pakistan's interest more than the dual nationals.
Iman, Dr. Taqi and Omar, they're both negating or refuting your point of view because they think that their nationality or their loyalty should not be challenged.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying that no one's saying that their loyalty is at question. But for instance, let me give you an example here. If, for instance, a Pakistani national has taken an oath of allegiance to the United States, the U.S. oath begins with a commitment to renounce loyalty to any other sovereign, and thereby if a dual national, for instance, who has American and Pakistani nationality does contest elections and does come into parliament, there is a conflict of interest that arises on several policy and strategy issues. And I think that would be unfair to Pakistan. And I think that there are decisions that need to be made by dual nationals which must be respected. If they wish to keep their dual nationality, no one's saying that their right to vote should be taken away. All Pakistanis, regardless of where they live, should have a right to vote and participate in, sort of spreading awareness and so forth. But I don't think that they should have a right to contest elections just on the basis of the fact that they have a conflict of interest.
Okay, taking the conflict of interest from here, I mean, if Dr. Taqi, I would like to ask you, if this is the provision given by the Constitution of Pakistan that you can keep dual nationality with the 16 countries, then why they just don't revoke it? I mean, just like in the Indian Constitution, either you are Indian national or you're NRI.
The bottom line is that Pakistan, over the jingoism and the xenophobia that the country has expressed about its own citizens, dual citizens, it was just outrageous. They've gone out of their way to denigrate the loyalties of the overseas Pakistanis. It is just absolute nonsense. And really, let me quite frankly tell you that
let's go to Umar. What's your view?
Regarding the conflict of interest, look, not every member of the parliament is in that position anyway. Certain policy decisions, certain decisions of national security, they're not made by the parliament at all. So where does the conflict arise? In fact, the information that they receive about issues such as national security, such as sensitive matters of foreign policy, they even rely on the secondary issues reported in the foreign press. They're not a part of those important decisions. And secondly, because they're not involved, there is no conflict of interest given the Pakistan's political landscape or paradigm. So I don't really think that every member of the parliament is part of that sensitive policy-making decisions. And if he's not part of that, how can you say that there's a conflict of interest?
Let me move on to Iman again. Iman, then tell us, if the voting rights are given to the overseas Pakistanis and they can't be part of the political process itself, what's the point?
Well, the fact is that if, for instance, I as an individual and I as a Pakistani choose to live abroad, or for instance study abroad, then I'm choosing to abide by the laws of the country that I'm living in. So for instance, if for instance Saudi Arabia doesn't allow this sort of political activity or such voting rights of Pakistanis to actually be implemented, overseas Pakistanis, then the unfortunate reality is that you have to accept that and you have to live within that. But I think that the overseas Pakistanis do have a right to be actively involved. But like I said, and I'm saying again, I do not think that they have a right to contest elections. And I think that there's a difference between working on ground and understanding the realities on ground and, sort of just living abroad and not really working on ground. So I think that there's some important distinctions that we need to bear in mind.
Okay, Dr. Taqi, I think we have joined again. Dr. Taqi, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay,
Can you hear
please go ahead.
Insofar as the Constitution, as it stands right now, and the way it has been interpreted, yes, everyone should abide by it. What I'm talking about is that it's a very parochial thought not to allow people to contest because they have taken citizenships elsewhere. United States does not stipulate anything like that. There are many other countries which don't, and then there are countries which do. Some countries have modified their constitution to allow their overseas citizens to come back and actually contest. Philippines is one example. They have a huge Filipino diaspora, and they have accommodated that. So stipulations can be placed. But then again, one thing that I want to point out is that who is judging? The Pakistani Supreme Court has been meddling in the national interest according to its own account. In the memo gate affair where an ex-ambassador was impugned and ridiculed and dragged over the coals, it was basically judging national interest. So if they are sitting on a judgment where national interest is being debated, shouldn't they actually disclose their own dual citizen status? If there is anyone on the bench, Supreme Court and any other superior judicial person, I think it would only be fair to ask them, the judges, but they don't. They have refused to.
But is it their notion of judicial activism that they have decided to open this Pandora box wherever they pick and choose and decide?
Look, it's not really judicial activism. I've said that this is judicial chaos. One man's whims are being imposed on the whole judiciary. You don't see any dissent coming out of the Supreme Court bench. Everyone is under the Chief Justice's thumb, and the guy just picks up news items and places them on his cause list. And one more thing, he makes all these disparaging remarks from the bench, but a lot of this does not make into the judgment, so it cannot technically be appealed or questioned. He grabs the highlights, denigrates anyone and everyone the way he wants, but then does not have the guts to put it in his judgment. Why doesn't he actually put this in the judgment so we can actually appeal it in his court or anywhere else that we may so choose? But really, Pakistanis need to grow up. What I was saying earlier on is that nobody is really bending over backwards to go back and be part of the parliament. There are millions of Pakistanis abroad, maybe 5, 10, a handful actually want to go back. You have seen this dual nationality cases. People gave up their Pakistani parliament membership but really did not want to give up their dual citizenship. So maybe Chief Justice should reflect on it a little bit.
Okay.
I don't see any queues outside any embassy asking for election nomination papers.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, taking out from there, moving on to the voting rights, do you really think it will matter for overseas Pakistan if they've been allowed? There is a news again that it won't be possible, but will it matter for the second or third generation of Pakistani citizens who really, as you mentioned rightly, don't even want to go back because of the security?
Well, in their kids, the generations to come, yes, they must give back to the countries of our origin, but they are part of the new world, and they should continue to participate in the communities that they are born in and they are becoming part of. They should keep their heritage. It only enriches them. It would be unfair to the children growing up in the Pakistani households to keep driving them back to whatever was left behind. There are historical precedences where diaspora has contributed very richly. Our people do, as Amar was saying about the remittances. That is just one aspect. We contribute technical know-how, education, a bunch of other things at every level that we can. There are many initiatives that we can be part of. Voting is only one way of contributing. Yes, it should be, but I think our eyes should be on the future, not looking back.
Omar, what's your view on it? I mean, taking it from there, I also want to bring in this, if the voting rights been given, and how would you see it happening in Saudi Arabia and Gulf states where they don't allow any political activities? And that is the mass immigration from Pakistan in those specific areas.
Obviously, there are issues related to practicality, and because the general populace is so depoliticized over there, so I don't think, perhaps it's a little too late in the day to sort these things out for them. They should have, if they had any such plans and if there was such pressure, it should have happened a little way too earlier than it's happening right now. Can I just make one more point about the voting aspect? I think yes, the overseas Pakistanis, they contribute in so many ways, but the most important contribution that they can make to Pakistan is the right to vote. This is something that cannot be emphasized enough. Yes, they contribute financially, technical know-how. You get the better education. You're exposed to life over here. You try and introduce what you've learned. Everything is important, but nothing is more important than your ability to vote. And there are a lot of Pakistanis who live here in, for example, in the UK, in the North America, for example, even in the Europe as well. So there are a lot of Pakistan, even if you cannot implement that in the Gulf states, but you can still give them the chance to vote and decide for the future of the country in the countries where you can implement them.
Okay, that's fine. Iman, before we go to break, I want to ask you, what is your view internationally? I mean, how do you see media and study circles, they are reacting to Pakistani elections?
Well, internationally, at least from my interaction, I've seen people view Pakistani elections as an extremely dangerous and turbulent time for Pakistan. And to be honest, this view has been enhanced after candidates have been, the victims of violence in different parts of the country. But election time in Pakistan is extremely important for the U.S. and Britain particularly, due to their involvement in Afghanistan. And the world's eyes on Pakistan during crucial times like these. And there's a great focus on free and fair elections, but despite this focus on free and fair elections, no one internationally is paying heed to pre-poll rigging that's been going on for the last couple of months in the form of, for instance, state funds disbursement or the irregular appointments that are being made. So despite the media coverage of these factors, there isn't much international concern over them, which I find a bit strange.
Okay, Dr. Taki, what's your view? How is media and the international study circles, they are reacting to Pakistani elections? Do they see any hope coming from that region, or is more chaos?
Well, actually, if you look at the last 48 hours, whatever has gone on in the returning officers' little kangaroo courts that they had set up, it has drawn nothing but ridicule from around the world. Basically, the exercise was an exercise in depoliticization. They made a mockery of the scrutiny process, asking people about this kalima or that kalima and this religious injunction and the other. It was a ridiculous thing to do, and a lot of them just got away with it. What happened was that in the process, true scrutiny did not take place. Politicians got a bad name, and a lot of real issues would be ignored. I really think that the Pakistani elections, like many other elections, it's all about local issues.
Do you even think that these sort of questions even form the basic moral level of these returning officers? They must be educated as well, that how many girlfriends you have and how many wives you have in front of camera.
Well, the question is not in front or off the camera, but who gives them the authority to do that, and who actually put this thought in their mind. One of the eminent columnists, Ayaz Amir, was actually censured for two of his columns, one about the ideology of Pakistan. So who gets to decide what the ideology of Pakistan is? If it is going to be a judge of the Supreme Court, then I would want to know what their own background is, who they are, whether they know the 6 kalimas or not. I would like to quiz them too. But the bottom line is that it actually takes you to very petty issues. It takes you away from the real issues, the issues that the Pakistani people face, and bigger and larger issues that the world would face at the hands of what is coming out of Pakistan. And believe me, very little good news comes out of Pakistan. I have to say this, that the only thing that concerns the world is that if there is another 9/11 cooking somewhere in Pakistan.
Okay, so it's only about the bad news which is publicized. Okay, before we go to break, Iman, we just want to ask you a very last question. Do you see any hope after these elections in Pakistan?
Well, actually, unfortunately, there will be greater choice in the form of candidates and policies, now that, for instance, there's a third force like PTI also contesting, there remains a culture of intolerance and mudslinging in Pakistan. And in order for actual change to occur, there has to be a change in the narrow mindsets, and there has to be, someone has to put a stop to this continuation of dynastic politics, which forms the basis of the Pakistani culture.
Okay.
But at the same time, I think that there's also some very positive moves which we must draw attention to. For instance, this is the first time in Pakistani history that a woman from the federally administered tribal areas has filed nomination papers. So we also see that there's a positive improvement in the sense of provision of greater opportunities. But I think that there needs to be an overall change in the mindsets and the change in the political culture of Pakistan.
Okay. Thank you very much, Iman, for joining us. We'll go for a break now, and when we come back, we'll talk more about the ongoing developments in Pakistan. Welcome back, viewers. We're joined by Dr. Taki from America and Omar from London, and we're just joined by Hiba from University of Glasgow. She's doing law from Glasgow, also an overseas Pakistani. So we'll talk to her about the ongoing developments. Assalamu alaikum, Hiba.
Walaikum assalam.
Thank you very much for joining us. Tell us, how do you see the upcoming elections in Pakistan?
I'm very excited about it. I mean, as everybody knows, the current situation of the country, I think everybody really wanted this election. It's interesting to see that this is the first time that a Democratic Party has completed their full term.
So it's more about the democracy than that a civilian government is conducting these elections.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see the outcome and the change it will provide for the country.
All right, Omar, let me bring you in and let me ask you this, that for the past 54 years or more than that, we have been struggling with military dictatorships and military establishment. So how do you view their role in the upcoming elections?
Look, is the question directed to me, Ji?
Yes, Omar, please, you go ahead.
I don't think, I'm a little pessimistic about this. I don't think that any development, however small, really bypasses the influence of our military establishment. They may not play an active role, a visible role, but they're there in the background. They will remain there in the background until and unless the civilians, because of their good performance, because of their delivery, and because of their own good work, earn the legitimacy and the confidence of the people to push them back to their role.
But so, Dr. Taki, what's your view on it? How do you see the military establishment playing their role?
I agree with Ahmad. They tend to remain behind the scenes. It's too hot a potato for anyone to handle, and I think the military establishment is really not quite capable, and they realize that they can't handle it. So, and it's not the time for them to. Perhaps there would not be another time where they would actually come to the forefront. This perhaps would remain the new way of doing things. A lot of issues and agenda are set through their proxies in the media, a bunch of other people actually doing their bidding. We have seen that over the last 5 years throughout the tenure of the civilian government. They got significant right-wing pressure from the media. Major issues were thrown in their lap, which were just handpicked from media headlines. That's what kept them preoccupied. And in that way, military establishment was actually setting the agenda. But overall, certainly, it's a positive development that you make a political transition instead of being booted out. That's important. Maybe 2-3 more cycles, and the military establishment will be weaker, if not completely out. But still, they're not giving in without a fight. We saw a little clip in the last 48 hours, as I've mentioned. I seriously doubt that someone would actually be scrutinizing Ayaz Amir's written columns, and like he himself said, that perhaps someone who doesn't even quite understand the nuances of his writing. So someone really put these guys up to what they did. I would be really surprised that the returning officer or whoever that dude from his constituency was who actually filed that
They even
complaint.
have read those articles, I would even say.
I doubt it.
Because, yes,
And
as a
Ayaz is such a nuanced and wonderful writer that, you could draw a bunch of different
Okay,
inferences from his
we will
columns.
come to that. Okay, Umar, what's your view? How do you see General Kiani getting retired in September, and then Chief Justice of Pakistan will be retiring, president term is finishing?
I was saying that we hear it all the time, we read it all the time. There's so many speculations in the corridors of power in Pakistan that perhaps he would like another extension. Perhaps the Honorable Chief Justice wouldn't mind another extension. But I think the public opinion would not really support that or allow it. Like Dr. Saab said, that the things have changed, times have changed, and I don't really see another extension either for the General Saab or for the Chief Justice Saab.
Okay. Oh, so is there any plan? You can see any Bangladeshi model, Dr. Taki, going behind?
Well, let me first say good riddance. Both of them will be gone, thank God for that.
Well, you stood up for Chief Justice of Pakistan.
Well, that was the right thing to do at the time, and I think this is the right thing to say at this time.
Okay.
So it was for a cause, and I think at the time we also made amends when we realized that the guy had a ego bigger than the Hoover Dam here. So that's how it is. But to get to their legacy, the important part is, what is the Chief Justice of Pakistan's legacy besides judicial chaos? You would not be able to cite a good judgment where he actually has laid down the law. I really don't consider it even judicial activism in the classic sense of the word. This is actually a one-man show, and I don't think that he's leaving a whole lot of legacy behind in terms of laying down the law. And that would be important for his colleagues to show, whoever takes over his mantle, to show that there is some thought left in the present bench. I hope that the next guy is not as headstrong and more focused on the law than the Chief Saab was. He was just outrageously fond of actually making news and being in the news. And insofar as General Kiani goes, the army is a much more well-oiled machine than any other institution, and I think that the institutional inertia would carry it on. His legacy perhaps would be much more smooth and organized than Chief Saab's.
And what about this? You're talking about the legacy. So I think we'll definitely remember this Article 62 and 63 in those days. So Hiba, you tell us, do you think this is the right thing to do in public, to ask questions which are personal and then allow people to file their nomination papers?
If they're a public figure, I think that there should not be an objection. I mean, I do know in terms of the British system, the way we have that, it's the right to a private life. And
so right of private life should be protected.
Yeah, I mean, it should be protected to some extent, because sometimes there's information that the public have a right to know. It's anything that's beneficial for the public to know. Otherwise, it can be deemed that private life should be separate. It's anything that's beneficial towards the public knowing, then the courts can deem that acceptable to be known.
Okay. Let me bring in.
Public figure.
Okay, Omar, I want to ask you about this Article 62 and 63. I mean, do you think it's a witch hunt? Simple question.
Sir, we need to know especially the aspect of morality that's been introduced from 62 to 63, offer obligatory duties, abstain from sins, be of good character. All these things, people innocently ask now, would Qaid-e-Azam, would he even qualify? I think Dr. Saab has said it in the show earlier, whether publicly or privately, you cannot ask these questions, and who has the moral high ground anyway to ask these questions or put these questions to anyone? Secondly, sir, state cannot and should not legislate on morality. We've seen the abuse of it far too many times, whether it's rooted in religion, whether it's rooted loosely just by putting in the constitution he should be a man good character and enjoy good reputation, who's going to break it down and pass a judgment on it? The returning officer? Well, we've seen the clips of what they do. I don't think they qualify either to pass such judgments.
Okay, taking it from Ayaz Amir, you were talking earlier, Dr. Taki. Ludhianvi has filed his nomination paper, the proclaimed offender in 22 terrorist cases, and his nomination paper has been accepted. And Ayaz Amir, who wrote 2 columns debating the ideology of Pakistan, he's been refused.
I guess there was someone to file an objection to Ayaz Amir, but nobody objected to Ludhianvi Sahib. And as we know, that many witnesses, taking all the way from Sadiq Ganji case to sectarian targeted killings of the Shia, they have been physically eliminated. So people take a cue from that. Ludhianvi Sahib has political clout, but more than that, their sister organization, Lashkar-e-Jhangvi, has a lot of terrorist clout and violent muscle that they put to good use. And not just him, but Aurangzeb Farooqi from Karachi, another firebrand of the erstwhile Sipai Sahaba. He had his papers approved. There's a political party which it was called Rahe-Haq Party from Peshawar. Their guy Ibrahim Kasmi also had his papers approved. So there's not just one, there's many, and the returning officer should have actually questioned some of the things. Even if there was no objection filed, his job was to actually scrutinize. And if, as you say, that he was proclaimed offender in as many cases, even one case, at least there should have been a question. But I guess everyone is just too scared to say anything.
Okay, Umar, I mean, I want to bring in this area of Jhang as well now, where Ludhianvi is contesting. NA89 is contesting from as a constituency where he will be facing Sheikh Waqas Akram. Sheikh Waqas Akram has been fighting this election, has been winning as well. This time he is under this radar of as well. Also, and there's another seat where Abid Imam, son of Fakhr Imam and Abda Hussain, he's been refused, his paper has been refused as well. So, are we giving them a free hand?
Exactly. This is the problem. Be it the ideology of Pakistan or be it the Article 62, 63, the problem is it's going to be abusive, it's going to be inconsistent. You're allowing certain people to enter the political process and whenever it's convenient for you, you disallow people like Ayaz Amir, for example, and the others to not contest in the elections. Can you really say that these are the right people, people like Ludhianvi, who should make the decisions for you in the parliament? What is the direction they're going to take your country to, and why is it that it is not done? It is not done because it's not supposed to be just and fair. It's supposed to be abusive. It's supposed to be inconsistent. And that is why, whether it's ideology of Pakistan, whether it's Article 62, 63, there's so much room to maneuver, there's so much room to tweak here and there that whenever they will it, they're going to disallow people who are not.
It's about a personal choice or the fear of mullah if they got the weapons and okay. Result projections.
If the mullah is on their side, he's going to contest the elections.
Okay. Result projections. Starting with you, Hiba. What do you think? What is going to happen in the upcoming elections?
I've had to think about it. It's been very difficult to say because a lot of the surveys that have been conducted are showing, the polls are showing different results each time. But I think it's, the most recent one was March, and that showed that 29% voted PPP and nearly 25% is support PML and another 20% said PTI. But I think that Imran Khan has realized that PTI's popularity was in decline for a while, but it's difficult to say at this point in time because of the recent jalsa that's happened in Lahore. That could really up the votes. A lot of people seem to think that a lot of PTI votes come from the younger generation, but the poll suggests that this is actually spreading equally between the ages of 18 to 70.
Okay.
And the main thing is obviously the votes
So do you
come
think
from
PTI will be
urban or rural.
do you think PTI will be a political force, a big, massive political force, or do you see Imran Khan as the premier of Pakistan?
I don't. Right now, it's difficult to say because a lot of people like traditional politics, especially in the rural areas, and that's where he needed to get the votes from. At this point in time, I do think that he could win seats, but I don't know about winning an overall majority.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that the traditional parties, KPP, are really, Pakistan People's Party, are really, really in there still.
Okay. Okay. Let me move on to Dr. Taki. Dr. Taki, what's your result projections of the upcoming election? First question, do you think they will be free and fair? And second, what is your own opinion about the party structures?
Well, insofar as stuffing at the ballot box, I don't think that's going to happen. But I consider this type of ridiculous scrutiny of the papers also part of pre-poll rigging. So, yeah, on election day, I don't think it would be anything too dramatic. Not quite Ziaul Haq's referendum anymore. I don't think that's possible. It would be a relatively free and fair election. I think it's still too early to call any projections. My hunch is that it will be some combination of the 1990 and 2002 results, where the right-wing political parties got a massive edge, and the secular parties were cornered. People's Party was cornered in Sindh. ANP was eliminated. Actually, ANP won the 1990 election. I shouldn't say that.
No, I mean the 2002 when MMA won the.
Yes, the 2002 was where the secular parties were routed. So I think some sort of a replication of those results would take place.
So 2002, a prime minister which won't have any power. Is that what you're saying?
No, no. What I'm saying is that the majority perhaps is going to go towards rather right-wing forces.
Okay.
And one point, taking you back to this Article 62, 63, we tend to focus on one or two things, and we try to latch on to those. Yes, those are pretty evil articles, but the mother of all evils is the Objectives Resolution, which is in the Pakistani Constitution now, and Ziaul Haq put that and these articles through an ordinance in the Constitution. But everything which has to do with religion actually flows from that Objectives Resolution, and nobody really has the courage to say that's the absolute poison that was inducted in the Constitution. Three constitutions prior to that, they did not incorporate the Objectives Resolution in the actual body of the Constitution. It was kept as a preamble, and Ziaul Haq actually made it part of the Constitution, and ever since it has stayed there. And all these Islamic laws and parochial things, they flow from that.
Okay, so Omar, what is your take? How do you see the upcoming elections?
Apart from the traditional constitutional balance, the balance in the constituencies, what's really interesting for me in these elections is the influence or the supposed influence of social media, for example. Pakistan has, 8 million Facebook users, and 50% of them are between age groups 18 to 24. And parties like PTI and now even PMLN, they've tried to tap this market. The new voters registered, would they vote for, say, PTI? Those who are ruling out the possibility, I think they'll be in for a big surprise. I don't see the traditional divide of urban-rural vote anymore. I think that the inroads have been made by the media, and generally the people are more aware now. They will be able to exercise their right, and perhaps even exercise their right personally. It's going to be, for me, a two-way fight, PTI and PMLN, and I think at the moment, although it looks good for PMLN, but whether they'll get the majority, I don't really think so. It looks like it's going to be a hung parliament, and again, it depends on the campaign, how these parties run their campaign.
Okay, let me rephrase this question for you. Do you see Imran Khan as the premier of Pakistan?
As much as I wish, I don't.
Okay, you don't. Dr. Taki, what's your yes or no answer? Do you see Imran Khan being the premier of Pakistan?
I don't, but may the better candidate win.
Okay. And Hiba, your thoughts? Do you see Imran Khan as the Prime Minister of Pakistan?
Not in this current election, no.
No. Okay. Thank you very much, Hiba, for joining us.
No problem. Thank you.
Dr. Taki, I just want to ask you two more questions. Role of media, electronic media. Okay, let me ask you, what do you see, social media, electronic media, how do you see this will play a part in the upcoming elections?
Absolutely important, especially in the cities, but also in suburban and even in the rural communities. It is kind of now playing the role of, with the advent of the mobile phones and little apps which you can run on them. It is almost like the old-fashioned transistor radio, where if in a rural community you had one transistor radio, you could actually reach to multiple households through that. So if you have one or two Facebook or Twitter users, you can still influence the small rural communities. And like Amar said, that the divide is being parted, the digital divide is also being parted. It is going to be an important force, and hopefully the social media and alternative media can keep the electronic media in check. But still, I have not seen a whole lot of success in actually setting the agenda for the mainstream electronic and print media, where you actually push the issues on them. So far, they have been successful in dictating the issues, whether it was the Raymond Davis affair or the Memo Gate and so on and so forth. The pertinent issues about economy, terrorism, so far we have not seen a whole lot of, they're not gaining as much traction as they should. But again, elections are mostly about local issues. But these big ticket items also need to be somehow brought to the front burner on the election issue.
Okay, let me ask you, international influence, Saudi Arabia, Iran playing a role in the upcoming elections. How will they react to these gas pipeline and the Gwadar port projects?
Saudi Arabia, I don't think that they would be much averse to the Gwadar port idea, but Iran, Pakistan, India gas pipeline, yes. I don't think that as such they can do a whole lot of damage as far as the elections themselves are concerned. Yes, as power brokers and guarantors of many different things, they do play their part. But come the election day, they can't do a whole lot. And again, whether it is Saudi Arabia or United States or whatnot, they have to play the hand that eventually is dealt by the Pakistani people. You can't really impose a whole lot of things from the outside. I really am not into that much conspiracy theories. No matter what Saudi wishes or US wishes, they still have to work with the players who are on the ground. Outside forces are not possible, but yeah, they broker a thing here and there. We saw General Musharraf's arrival back in Pakistan immediately after a Saudi visit. Things like that happen. In 2008 elections, Nawaz Sharif was brought back, so they do play their part.
Okay,
Umar,
what's your thought about this international dynamics of Pakistani politics?
They've always been power brokers, countries like Saudi Arabia, and we know America, the country of three A's, Pakistanians. They will be power brokers, but would they be able to influence significantly? I don't really think that that's going to happen significantly. On policies, yes, but on the government, on the elections, I don't think so.
I mean, Fazlur Rahman, the leader of Jamaat Ulama Islam, is Jamiyat Ulama Islam. Clearly, at his last congregation in Lahore, he declared that the Irani gas pipeline is not in favor of Pakistan.
Well, Fazlur Rahman or anyone else, they would like to play to the international gallery and the international guarantors as well. But there should be forces who are opposing Fazlur Rahman. This was People's Party's pet project. They should take ownership of that and counter the narrative that Fazlur Rahman is putting out. Why not? Who's holding their hand? If Fazlur Rahman or Ludhianvi look up to Saudi Arabia, fair enough. People's Party and Awami National Party have roots in the people. Go back to the electorate, energize the base, set the agenda, and on the day of election, get out the vote.
Okay, Omar, I mean, same question. How do you see Maulana Fazlur Rahman's role in the upcoming elections? 6 National Assembly seats, and he's been power broker, and he expects himself to be balancing the power in the upcoming elections as well.
What Fazlur Rahman Saab has done, he has flexed his muscles. He's, built a consensus among the Deobandis. He looks very good. For example, in the frontier, the belt, the Hazara and the Diyai Khan, he looks good. But I don't really think that he's going to be a significant power broker or will have significant number of seats beyond 6 or 7 to really influence.
And we all hope he loses to Musarrat Shaheen as well. With this note and thought, I would ask you very last question. Is there any hope after these elections? Both of you. Dr. Taqi, you first.
Certainly. Well, why not? Absolutely, there is hope. It's an important transition. It's a step forward. And we certainly hope that the next government would not make the mistakes that the previous one did, and we certainly hope that it would not be bogged down by the issues that were thrown in the lap of the previous government by media, judiciary, generals, you name it. Hopefully they'll have a better time at the helm, and we certainly should be very hopeful about the election outcome and for Pakistan.
Okay. Omar, your last thoughts, 30 seconds.
Sir, if people in my age lose hope, they lose everything. So I'm very hopeful, regardless of what the results are, regardless of how the next government performs, there will still be room for hope, and we should be hopeful even in the worst times.
Okay. Thank you very much, both Omar from London and Dr. Taqi from America, and hope to have you on another show. Thank you very much for both of you.
Thank you, Sayyid.
Thank you very much for joining us, viewers. We have discussed today, from an overseas point of view, some internal politics as well as the overall political landscape. When we see you next week, we will talk from Pakistani's perspective within Pakistan, and then we'll see that how these developments will unfold. See you next week. With these prayers, as always, गम हमको न दे सिवाय गम शब्बीर, शब्बीर का गम बांट रहा है तो इधर दे. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad.